disclaimer that nothing that I say today has been reviewed or approved by the FDA. I do not diagnose, prescribe, treat, or cure disease. I'm simply educating on historical and traditional use of herbs. So our topic today is hypertension and preeclampsia in pregnancy. This is a very important topic because, as we know, this can be a life-threatening issue. This can be a reason for having high-risk pregnancies, and of course, high-risk pregnancies require or are pressured into a number of interventions. There tends to be higher risk of interventions, and with every intervention, it cascades the risk for needing more interventions and less and less natural options. So we have, what do you do last minute? Okay, so we're in our last month and we've been diagnosed with hypertension or preeclampsia or risk of preeclampsia. What can we do? There are some things that we can do right away that have helped many women in that situation right away, that will not only resolve the blood pressure issue, but also resolve the toxemia that may have begun and prevent it from going any further. And then, of course, we have things that we can do earlier on in the pregnancy to prevent from even getting to that place. If we have ever been diagnosed or suspected hypertension or preeclampsia in a past pregnancy, I would definitely be paying attention to that section of what can we do earlier in pregnancy. And before pregnancy, of course, there is even more that we can do. We can do much more intensive healing because our body isn't quite as busy growing a human. Unfortunately, many of those things should not really be done while breastfeeding. So this is the kind of thing that if you have had hypertension or preeclampsia in the past and you want to attempt to avoid it on your next pregnancy, it would be a really good idea to have time between the end of nursing one child and becoming pregnant with the next baby so that you can do these more intensive cleanses. Okay, so that's the full scale of what we're going to talk about today. Again, I am a master herbalist and I have 4 kids, and I live in a homestead, and I love teaching people how to not only learn to heal, learn to be their own healer in partnership with Christ and with God, but also learn how to live well, live a life that promotes wellness. Because there's a great quote, I don't remember if it was by Hippocrates or somebody else, but it's a good quote. But it's, I think it's, with each bite of food, you are either promoting disease or healing from disease. And I really believe that. And he was kind of a smart guy. He had a lot of empirical evidence with the people that he helped in his principles working. Okay. Let's do this. Okay, so anyone who is here to learn about last minute herbal aids. Okay, so our blood pressure is creeping up. What might we do? Again, this is not a prescription. I am simply sharing what was taught to me at Dr. Christopher's School of Natural Healing. And this includes recommendations by midwife Diane Bjarnson, who was an NARM certified midwife and the founder and director of the Utah School of Midwifery. Sorry, that felt like a mouthful. Okay. All right. So, as I'm going to talk about later, the best time to deal with hypertension is before pregnancy, right? To resolve the underlying conditions, cleansing and nourishing the body. If not, then as early in the pregnancy as possible, we want to deal with it by cleansing and nourishing the body. More nourishing. There is some cleansing we can do while pregnant, but more focus on nourishing. And then we have our last minute herbal aids. So just a little background into high blood pressure in general. What I was taught is that high blood pressure is at least in part caused by, if not primarily caused by, actually a starving body. our body is not getting the nutrients that it needs into the cells. Now, probably our digestion is off. Probably we have some toxins blocking certain receptor sites. Probably we have some emotional or belief stuff that is leading us to hold more tension in our body and prevent that uptake. Stress can really wreak havoc. And that's why this topic is so important to me, because I've seen firsthand with myself and with people that I love that as soon as a healthcare provider, even a natural one, like a midwife, of course, there's all kinds of different midwives, midwives. When a healthcare provider, someone who you are trusting to look after you or answer your questions, however high touch that is in your pregnancy journey, when they become concerned about your blood pressure, it is so easy to freak out, right? And even if you're not freaking out, like I've talked to some women that they're actually feeling calm, but their husband and their mother and their family is like freaking out, right? Because it's scary, because we've all seen these horrible, many of us have seen these horrible images in TV shows and movies where, the woman has develops actual eclampsia and has the seizures, and it's not good. It's very bad. So of course we don't want to get there. I am in no way trying to say this is not a big deal. This is a big deal, but it can still be helped naturally, and it can still be helped quickly naturally. There's often this perception that, well, if it's natural, it's going to be too slow or it's going to be too weak. That is not always true. That is how some things work. They work very gently and slowly over time. But there are other herbs, excuse me, there are other herbs that work very quickly and very well. So they should not be discounted. Anyway, so we, let's see, I was talking about our body that's starving. So, okay, so once we have this condition start to happen, and then we get the stress of, people who love us, or at least are in some part medically authoritative over us, are starting to get worried about your blood pressure. Now that's piling on the stress and probably feeds into more high blood pressure. So this is really tricky. So let's learn what to do about it. Okay. So the first thing, this is probably like the most controversial thing I'm going to say right off the bat, is it's not for me, don't shoot the messenger, but I do believe in it now. I didn't used to, I believe in it now. It's get off the dairy, get off protein powders, and get off eggs. A very common recommendation for pregnant women who are experiencing higher blood pressure, especially at the end of pregnancy, is to go on the brewer's diet, which is like hard-boiled eggs all day long. Like it's it's so many eggs. And let me share my personal experience with that. So baby number 3, I was being cared for by a midwife, and she came to my home for appointments, and loved her. She was wonderful. My kids sound very happy, which sometimes makes me worried. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear them kind of gleefully screaming in the background. Anyway, so I was getting to the end of my pregnancy, and stress was mounting. It was lockdown time, and because it was April of 2020. And so it became this whole like, well, where am I allowed to go? Who am I allowed to see? Who have my birth attendants visited? Has anyone been, tested positive, like all this, like, right? Like it was crazy. It was crazy. And so it was very stressful, before we knew more. And and my blood pressure started going up. And that pregnancy, I had been eating a Weston A. Price diet. So lots of organ meat, lots of bone broth, lots of eggs, grass-fed butter, all the raw dairy, all the fermented foods, and then soaked and not really sprouted, but like soaked and or fermented and sourdough, whole grains, and nuts, seeds, legumes, fruits, and vegetables, right? Okay. And so towards the end of that pregnancy, my blood pressure starts rising, and it is just continuing to rise at every appointment. And it was really weird because prior to that pregnancy, this was the first pregnancy I'd had where my blood pressure was actually average, like in the normal range. Usually I tended low. And I have never had a blood pressure issue on the high end anyway. And so not only was my baseline blood pressure like more normal, but then at the end it was creeping up, and it kept creeping up at the end of every appointment. There was no, there were no proteins in my urine or evidence of anything else, but it was, I felt a lot of pressure to have my baby early, which of course didn't happen at all. So it was really stressful. And it's really stressful to have, your midwife being stressed out too. Like, oh, then something really is wrong, because she was very chill the whole time before that. Like we didn't even take weight measurements the whole pregnancy, which was awesome. Anyway, so I was getting really worried, and she said, well, are you drinking your herbal tea? And I was like, no, because the funny thing is whenever I get stressed, I stop drinking my tea and then wonder why I'm so much more stressed. And so she said, well, drink more of your tea. And so I just started drinking quarts and quarts of my raspberry leaf tea. Of course, it was a blend that I made for myself before I made one that I actually started selling. It was slightly different. The one I make now is much tastier. The one previously was kind of bare bones. Anyway, so I drank a lot more tea. And the alfalfa and nettles and raspberry leaf in that tea are so nutritious that my blood pressure did begin to level out and stop climbing. And so that was beautiful. But eating, I couldn't even tell you a number, but like eating tons of animal protein did not bring my blood pressure down, as the brewer diet would indicate works. So I always hear people recommend that. I don't know anyone personally that it's worked for. If it worked for you or someone you love, then great. I'm glad that it got you out of a scary situation. But I personally can't recommend it, especially not just as a blanket recommendation for everyone. So, so if we want to create a very fast, effective lowering of the blood pressure, we can just drink more of the prenatal tea, but here's a much more aggressive approach. So the first thing was, as I said before, get off the dairy, get off the protein powders, get off the eggs. I don't care if the dairy is grass-fed, pasture-raised. I don't care if the cows were sung to every morning. I don't care if the eggs were, I shouldn't say what I was about to say. Anyway, the idea behind that is that if our blood pressure is really high and we start experiencing a toxic condition, our liver cannot keep up with that toxic condition anymore. Proteins begin to be dumped out of the body. So the idea is to keep the proteins high. But guess what else is high in protein? Alfalfa. And it comes with so many other things that are extremely beneficial and nourishing for the body. So what Diane recommended was take 6 alfalfa capsules twice a day. That's not even really that much. I could think of a much more aggressive routine than that one. So but that's the thing, is if you are not willing to at least try for a time letting go of the animal proteins, you may need a lot more alfalfa capsules. So these things work together. The herbal recommendations that I give are all in context of the mucusless diet, which is basically a whole food plant-based diet. Okay, so 6 alfalfa capsules twice a day, and then taking cayenne for better circulation. So again, cayenne, this is one of these herbs that works very well, very quickly. I'm just gonna come check in, see if we have any questions or anything I need to address. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about how to use the cayenne. So cayenne improves the circulation. Capsules are fine. This is not one that you have to taste. Although I've actually found that the feeling that I got when I took cayenne capsules, when they would break open down my digestive tract, that moment when it broke open was very uncomfortable. Sometimes it would even make me feel a little nauseous. So I would always make sure when I was taking cayenne capsules to take it with food so that that feeling was not as strong, that sensation was not as strong. But I have found more recently, just because I don't have time to make capsules right now, it's just not happening. When I put a pinch of cayenne in a shot size of hot water and drink that, either in one gulp or a few gulps, it's you don't have to win an award for how quickly you can drink it. It's fine. That then the initial sensation is more in my mouth and actually not as nauseating as when it would break open on an empty stomach. So everyone's going to have a different experience with that and preference with that. But of course, if you're adding the cayenne on top of your meals, you're also getting the benefit of stimulating saliva, which is extremely good for digestion. And of course, we need better digestion if our body is starving so much that it is trying to push more blood through to get more nutrients to the cells. That's the idea. I realized I didn't complete that thought earlier. That's the idea, is the body is starving, and so the heart is going to pump more blood through in an attempt to get more nutrients to the cells. Okay, so here's some other things about the cayenne. So it's easiest to take with meals. I have found that it does give me hiccups at first. So that's not abnormal, and it's not going to kill you. And it depends on how much I take. If I take a lot of cayenne at once, or I get a good mouthful of it, like on top of some food, and put that whole spoon in my mouth, then I'm more likely to get the hiccups. But they do go away. It's okay. But for people who are very sensitive to spiciness, you can start with just 1 capsule with breakfast and increase up to 2 capsules with each meal if necessary. Again, that's really not very much. That's less than a teaspoon with each meal. That might sound like a lot if you haven't done it before, but but it's food. Cayenne pepper is food. So in pregnancy, we always want to err on the side of less is more, because our body is sensitive and it's working really hard, but we also need to be as aggressive as the condition we're working with. So 1 or 2 capsules per meal of cayenne, that's actually more like a maintenance dose, but it can be enough in a pregnancy condition. So that's kind of cool. Another thing that's very helpful is body work. So massage, chiropractic work, exercise. So something gentle like walking and swimming and stretching, careful weightlifting. Yeah, those can be really, really, really helpful, because not only is body work relaxing, hopefully. If it's not relaxing, tell your person to that you can't relax, right? Like, you, at some level, you need to relax through it, or you're not going to get the benefit. You're not going to get those muscles to release, because you're going to be like, don't hurt me. So, but not only can it be very relaxing, but it is also just toning all the muscles, all the fascia, and all of the nerve. It's getting blood flow to the nerves. It's just improving circulation through the whole body and helping lymphatic flow. It's just super good. You should do it. A little note on kelp. So this is a, let's see, am I going to read the whole quote? Yeah, it's a good quote. So this is from the Dr. Christopher website, herballegacy.com. So kelp, as might be expected, is of use in the female organs. It will tone up a weak uterus and help produce a more healthy baby. as the balanced minerals will be supplied fully with the use of kelp. Some women who had lost babies in childbirth and others who had not been able to carry babies were helped by the use of kelp by Dr. Powell's prescription of kelp. I don't know who Dr. Powell is. I should find out. To carry healthy babies full term, especially when toxemia threatens during the last stages of the pregnancy. Kelp, being a carrier of important minerals and a toner and an antiseptic, can help clear up an otherwise dangerous condition. That's pretty cool. If you don't know, kelp is seaweed. It's kind of a specific kind. So you can actually get kelp capsules on my website, herbalembrace.com. It is also an ingredient in, let me double check here. I think it's in Vital Herbs. I'm going to do a little check. Yeah, so you can get just straight up kelp capsules. Excuse me. I'll drop a link to that right here. And we have a couple of thyroid formulas. I'm not necessarily going to talk about those in context of pregnancy right now. But yes, the Vital Herbs formula, which is what I use as a whole food, whole herb, nothing isolated, nothing synthetic vitamin. I took 5 capsules a day, or 5 capsules 3 times a day when I was pregnant, of Vital Herbs. I cannot recommend it enough. Okay. Yes, so it actually has a couple different sea vegetables. It has dulse leaf, kelp plant, spirulina, and Irish moss. So all of those are your sea vegetables. Yeah, Irish moss is also known as Irish sea moss. It's Chondrus crispus. So all these edible algae and seaweeds are so mineral rich. Of course, you want to get them from a cleaner part of the ocean as you can find. But don't go crazy. Don't go crazy. Because at this point, like every part of the world has been, what's the word? Contaminated. Like there is no absolutely perfect anything, but when you're getting plants and herbs where, whatever they've taken up from around them, it's all packaged in them. I haven't seen evidence that, taking plants has ever led to a toxic condition of some mineral or other chemical that this plant would have taken up. But if you've got something you want me to read on that, I'm happy to. Anyway, don't go crazy, but it is a good idea to get it from really responsible companies like Holistic Botanicals, which is who makes the Dr. Christopher's things. I wish that I could be on Facebook and not have the Facebook beeps. I apologize about that. Okay, anyway, so you can totally take the kelp capsules or the Vital Herbs capsules to get your kelp. And this would be a wonderful thing to do the entire pregnancy. Another great way to get kelp is you can actually just, here, I'm actually going to go grab it. Give me a second. I'm pretty sure that I've gotten this from Azure Standard before. And I can put a link to that. Okay, I'm trying to see if my video is, boy, those kids are having a good time. Okay, yes, we're in the view. Okay, so you can get kelp like this. So this is actually certified organic. I don't know how you can certify seaweed as organic, but apparently you can. And let's see what it says on the bag. So adds savory umami flavor, but not MSG, which is a neurotoxin. Don't do it. Dried at mild temperatures to preserve nutrients and enzymes. Contains a natural protein that enhances flavor and tenderizes beans. So I do like putting a piece of this in my pot when I instant pot beans that I've soaked. Please use sparingly if you're iodine sensitive. Sugar kelp. Huh. There's no sugar added, but that's interesting. It is Saccharina latissima is the genus and species of this kelp. So I guess its name is sugar kelp, and it's farmed in Maine. Okay. It's tested for chemical, heavy metal, petroleum, radioactivity, and microbiological contaminants, sustainably harvested and certified organic. It's a raw whole food that can be enjoyed right from the bag or added to recipes. It comes straight from the ocean and is solar dried at mild temperatures. Very cool. Yep. Okay. So here's what it looks like. So one of our teachers at the school, I've never met him. It was all on video for this guy. He said that he would just like snack on these right out of the bag. What I tend to do is, like I said, put it in my pot when I'm cooking beans. And then whenever I'm making a batch of broth, I won't usually put the whole thing in. I'll put more like a half of a chunk. Very technical term. It's not as tasty as like the seaweed snacks that you can get at Costco, except when Costco doesn't have it. Rude. But it's a taste one could acquire. Anyway, kelp. So mineral-rich broth, naturally mineral-rich broth with the help of kelp is a wonderful thing to be having throughout pregnancy, as well as, of course, your tea. I've talked about broth before. If you have any questions about it, feel free to ask. Okay, so those are our last-minute herbal aids. Let's move on to what are things we can do earlier in pregnancy. Now, of course, if you are earlier in pregnancy and you want to do any of those things that I mentioned, those are all totally fine to do the entire pregnancy. Not a problem. But there are some other things that we can do in earlier pregnancy that we can't necessarily do later, or aren't going to help us quick enough. Okay, so ideally, someone with a history of high blood pressure and or preeclampsia in a previous pregnancy is on good cleansing and nourishing herbs the entire pregnancy. So what are we talking about? We spirulina. Again, that's already in Vital Herbs, but I took extra, and I still take extra. It's so good. It's so good, right? It's also high in protein. And chlorophyll really helps us maintain good iron levels in the body while being completely non-toxic. It is not going to lead to iron poisoning like a supplement would, a non-natural supplement. Even the ones that pretend to be natural, but then still have an isolated chemical compound for the iron. Anyway, spirulina. Of course, I super love the lower bowel formula. But one can also make sure they're taking plenty of beets or beet powder, and eating raw foods to ensure that they are moving their bowels. Then we have the liver and gallbladder formula that can be used during the entire pregnancy for this condition, right? If you do not have history of high blood pressure and or preeclampsia, do you need to take liver and gallbladder formula your whole pregnancy? No. Again, less is more when we're pregnant. But if we do have that history and we want to prevent a very severe, what's the word for it? I don't know. If we're trying to prevent an emergency condition, we're going to do more than the normal things. So liver and gallbladder formula can be taken the entire pregnancy. Kidney formula can be taken the entire pregnancy. If you don't want to take the kidney formula, at least take uva ursi. You can probably even get that in a bulk form and just add a little bit to your tea. That will keep the kidneys functioning and increase energy. And then I need to get that recipe in here. There's a recipe that is a liver cleanse recipe that can actually be done every morning, and it is apple juice or grapefruit juice, lemon juice, ginger, and olive oil. I will find that recipe and I will post it. I thought it was in here. I'm sorry. But at the same time, it's not necessarily rocket science. So I always say like up to about a quart a day of juice is like a good amount for pregnancy. The 3-day juice cleanse can be done once a month on pregnancy if the woman was doing it before she was pregnant. If not, then we probably want to avoid something like that. But just having like a quart of juice every day is just fine. And so we can add lemon juice to that. We can juice the ginger while we're juicing the apple, or we can grate the ginger in fresh or powdered, but fresh is going to be more active in this case. And then a little olive oil with it. That can be taken every morning to keep the liver cleansed in a very gentle, safe way. Okay. And then of course, before pregnancy, but not necessarily while breastfeeding, that is when, if we have a history of this happening, we want to deeply cleanse and nourish our bodies. So we would be looking at what's called the extended herbal cleanse. And that is doing the lower bowel formula, the liver gallbladder formula, the kidney and bladder formula, and the bloodstream formula. That's one that we avoid in pregnancy unless there is an RH factor issue, where it is safer to do it than not to do it. And by do it, I mean take the blood cleansing formula. But except for that condition, we pretty much always avoid the bloodstream formula during pregnancy. Excuse me. But when we're not pregnant and when we're not breastfeeding, we can do that entire cleanse all the way up to the bloodstream formula. And we can do heavy metal cleanses. We can do parasite cleanses. We can do that monthly 3-day juice cleanse. And we can do that candida overgrowth cleanse and rebuild our gut lining. So those are all things that some of them can be done while pregnant, but it's just hard. So it's better to do all these things beforehand, get yourself so healthy, nourish up your body, get the toxins out, and practice living well. And then we see how we're doing in the pregnancy and make sure we're having our prenatal tea. And we may also want to take those other things that I mentioned earlier. Okay, that's what I got for today. Relatively simple topic. Very important topic, relatively simple topic. So if you know someone who has been affected by hypertension or preeclampsia in pregnancy, please send them this video. That's what we got today. Okay, so I will see you next time. And everybody, take care.